Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much, much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Thanks for tuning in to our Real Estate Radio Live program, your number one source for all of your real estate needs and education. We're broadcasting from the number one business radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for the 2 p.m. Wednesday edition of Real Estate Radio Live that comes to you Wednesday and Friday at 2 p.m., and daily Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. along with co-hosts Joe Cachera, Mike D'Ambrosio, and Bobby Decker. Our program is always focusing on real estate investing, and we're glad to have you with us. If you can't make the live show, you can catch our podcast on reradiolive.com and my programs on tomwilsonproperties.com or on iTunes or on YouTube. We have with us today special guest Robert Kiyosaki, whom we'll address in just a moment. If you go to tomwilsonproperties.com, you can sign up for a newsletter that comes out weekly, and it has a focus on economics as it relates to real estate. There are a number of white papers, such as the science of selecting best metros and products from a techie's perspective. And also we have quality cash flow, turnkey residential products, and commercial syndications that are available to you, part of which I've learned how to do through some of Robert's advisors, such as Kenny McElroy. Always welcome your questions and requests, and always available for free consultation. Our guest today, indeed, is Robert Kiyosaki, a real estate investor's rock star for sure. Had the pleasure of meeting Robert in 2004 at a Rich Dad Expo in San Francisco and spoke at one of his breakout sessions again in 2005. Since then, I've seen him numerous times. I've had the pleasure of spending many days with him on two of the Real Estate Guys Summit at Sea investor conferences, along with several of his advisors, Garrett Sutton, who's been on our program, Kenny McElroy, Andy Tanner, Tom Wheelwright, and also Peter Schiff, Tommy Hopkins, Ed Griffin, Robert Helms, Bob Helms, Russell Gray, and Robert's lovely wife, Kim, herself indeed a great educator, investor, and author. I've been a longtime fan of Robert and Rich Dad because he's always been a consistent fundamentalist teacher of financial principles and not a only my gimmick works kind of guy. He's a founder of Rich Dad Company, a prominent education company that provides personal, financial, and business education to people through books, seminars, education products all over the world. He wrote Rich Dad series with, I think, about 35 books so far, with combined sales of over 50 million copies. 3 of his books have been on number one top bestseller lists simultaneously on Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and New York Times. Robert is the all-time best-selling financial author. Financial literacy advocate, he has been a proponent of entrepreneurship, business education, investing, and that comprehensive financial literacy concepts should be taught in schools around the world. And I must say he's probably done as much to promote that as anyone I know. Robert's also host of his own Rich Dad radio show and maintains a monthly column on Yahoo Finance, writing about his business endeavors and his perspective on global economics, investing, business, world financial markets, and personal finance. My goodness, a busy guy indeed. He doesn't let any moss grow on his feet. Welcome to our program, Robert, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, and it's good to be on your program.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. It's been 18 years since you published Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We celebrated the 15th anniversary on the Summit at Sea in 2012, which shocked all of us that it had been that long. And you've been a passionate promoter and teacher of financial education for many, many years. You must have not had any idea that you would be fortunate enough to reach as many people as you did.
Oh, no, it's a complete surprise to me, simply because, as you know, Tom, what I say goes counter to what Wall Street says.
Yeah, it's a tough road to hoe, isn't it?
Right. Most of the financial advisors in my or celebrities, like Susie Orman's great, and she tells you to cut up your credit cards and all that. And I don't want to cut up my credit cards. And
that's a great thing to have right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, she's talking about self-discipline, which
Sure.
she's talking about.
Sure. And she's talking to folks that buy things that depreciate in value instead of appreciate in value, right?
Well, it's a lack of self-discipline.
Yep.
And then there's Dave Ramsey's a good friend of mine, but he advocates being debt-free, and I'm up to my debt eyeballs in debt.
Yep.
At 2.5% interest, why wouldn't you be in debt?
Don't understand why people don't get the difference between that and what Susie Orman promotes for don't have debt and credit cards. Yes, but some people carry it over and think all debt is bad, and it's not.
Well, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying Susie's stupid. She's speaking to that audience.
Sure. No, I think, to me, the real positive part about the reception of your writings and books and teachings is that there is a vacuum out there and a thirst by a lot of people to understand, principles that they aren't being taught in school and aren't being taught by Wall Street.
Correct.
Buckminster Fuller was one of my dad's favorite heroes. My dad I was fortunate enough to have a dad that taught me a lot of great principles. He was a little bit like yours in that he was kind of a poor dad, but he had some really good personal philosophies and folks that he admired, and that so he loved Buckminster Fuller, and he taught me to love him. I had the great pleasure of meeting him in 1976 when he was having us shadow him. And he's certainly a Leonardo da Vinci of our times, and unfortunately not enough people know about. What did you learn from him, Robert, and his book of A Grunch of Giants, and how did it influence your writing of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and how did he change your life?
Well, I studied with Fuller 3 different times. I went to Montreal Expo 67 to see his geodesic dome, which was a U.S. pavilion in Montreal. But studying with him in person kind of blew me away. It changed my life. Up to then, I was pretty a hardcore capitalist. I was a Marine pilot. I was in business to make money. And Fuller says, what a waste of a great mind just to make money. He says, what can you do to make to change the world? But it wasn't so much his words as how it impacted me. And I cried for days. I just felt like a greedy SOB. And out of that, I quit. I was in rock and roll. I was working with the bands like Duran Duran, The Police, Iron Maiden, Boy George. And I got out of the rock and roll business, and I went into education simply because I knew that there's a lack of financial education in the world. So that was in 83. Then I read his book. After he died on July 1st, 1983, and he wrote a book called The Grunch of Giants. And grunch stands for gross universal cash ice. It's how the uber rich rip off all of us. And once I read that book, and that combined with my Rich Dad's teaching, I understood what I had to do. So in 83, I became what I swore I'd never become, a teacher. So today I have a financial education company. Unlike most teachers, I do practice what I preach. I do make tremendous amounts of money, and but I use my Rich Dad's principles, not Bucky's principles. And I like the ultra rich. I mean, I play by their set of rules. So Bucky would probably be spinning in his grave right now. But there's no sense being poor when you don't have to be.
No. Certainly, Tom Wheelwright, your tax advisor, one of my great takeaways from him was that people are so scared of the tax code. Now, I like Steve Forbes' approach, and I think you do too, of a flat tax, but I doubt it'll ever happen. But Tom says, only a few pages talk about how they take your money. All the rest of the 7,000 pages tell you how the society wants you, rich people, to spend your money so that to the advantage of society. Right.
And I'm not pro the flat tax, because I think that's smoking dope. I mean, I just look at the tax code and I use it to my advantage, and I suggest everybody do that. To sit around and hope that the economy or the tax code changes to your advantage, I mean, you may as well go look for the Easter Bunny.
What in addition to your personal passion for teaching financial literacy, what should we do as a country, and what can the individual do to secure his or her financial future?
Well, Donald Trump and I wrote 2 books together. I don't necessarily agree with all his thoughts on my friends who are Mexican and I was a pilot like McCain, and I did go down 3 times, so I don't necessarily agree with his point of view. But Donald Trump and I agree on one thing, is that the world economy or the economy of the United States cannot change unless there's financial education in schools. So the real economic problem of America and the world is a lack of financial education. And, Donald had a rich dad and I had a rich dad. And my poor dad was head of education for the state of Hawaii. And though, as you know, most school teachers have no idea what money is. So when I look at the candidates, running for president right now, there's an old saying that money talks and BS walks. Well, there's only one candidate up there who knows how to make money. The rest of those guys are BSing us.
Yep. How in the world can you run the world's largest economic organization, right? If you don't have some experience in it, I don't get why that isn't obvious.
I don't know either. I mean, Marco Rubio is a nice, cute guy, but he's a poor guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think he knows how to make money. And I don't think Cruz knows how to make money. I don't think Bernie Sanders. I know Hillary knows how to steal money, but and Jeb Bush knows how to use the government to make money. And Donald's the only guy that knows how to make money in free capitalist society.
Yep. I agree. And I don't know how much more traction he can continue to get, but he's certainly one of the few that knows how to run an organization and take care of money.
Well, you know what all these guys talk about, because real estate's dependent upon jobs. If you don't have jobs, real estate's not worth anything. So all these guys talk about jobs, but like Huckabee and Kasich and all those guys, those are government guys. They're governors. The only kind of jobs they know how to create are government jobs, public servants, and that costs taxpayer money. It takes a lot of intelligence to create a private sector job. And Donald's the only guy up there that knows how to create public sector jobs. I have about 40 employees, and man, they're expensive. But if you're a governor, the taxpayers will pay their paychecks.
Yep.
So when you look at the candidates up there, whether you like Donald or not, you got to ask yourself, who knows how to create jobs, private sector jobs? Carly Fiorina, when she was CEO of Hewlett Packard, she fired more people than she hired.
I know.
So if you want somebody who knows how to kill private sector jobs, vote for Carly.
And my VC friends say, one of the most important things they can do to bring a person in to find people for high tech is someone who's had that exact experience before, even if they failed. But boy, I sure would rather have an option. I sure would rather have somebody who has had success. With us today on Real Estate Radio Live is Robert Kiyosaki, accomplished investor, financial educator, best-selling author of Rich Dad series of books, including Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Come back with us here in a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about real estate investing and talk about the economy. So stay with us on KDOW 1220 AM. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Nice to have you with us as always, and we have special guests today, Robert Kiyosaki, accomplished investor, financial educator, best-selling author of Rich Dad series of books, including Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert, let's move over to real estate investing. You have a lot of fans who are investors or want to invest in real estate, so we got to cover a little bit about that. You and I started buying properties about the same time in the 70s. One of the differences was that I confused landlording with investing. I didn't like landlording, so I quit buying for a lot of years. You were smarter than I was and kept on going. So you and Kim now have thousands of units. You have them in multifam, single-family homes, commercial. So I got to ask you, do you still like real estate investing, and what are your preferred real estate products to own and invest now?
I love real estate, and the reason is not so much for real estate, but because of debt and taxes. You see, if you look at historically what happened in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, which means the dollar became debt. So in 73, my rich dad said to me, you better learn how to use debt. So in 1973, I took my first real estate investment course. It was a 3-day course. And I never stopped investing ever since then. And the reason debt is important is because, number one, it's tax-free. Number two, whenever I hear somebody says, oh, I don't have any money, it's because they don't know how to use debt. And,
nice having those tenants pay that debt too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a business, and tenants paying the debt, what you call landlording, is a business called property management. I don't do that. My partner Kenny does that.
Yep.
So what happens for most people is they get short-sighted. They see what they don't like rather than the advantages. So this year alone, it's 2015, I picked up another 2,600 units in apartment houses, all tax-free, all using debt. That's when you get rich. But if you're trying to work hard and save money and get out of debt, you'll probably go broke.
Yep, you always said savers are losers, right?
Savers are the biggest. Why would you save money when they're printing money? You got to be nuts. Why would you save money when they're dropping interest rates to negative interest rates, where now it costs you money to keep money in the bank? You've got to be an idiot.
I guess the next step is they're going to start paying us to have to have debt. Robert, I think, as you know, I've invested heavily in Texas during the last 15 years. When by chance, I studied the country extensively when after I figured out it was important to have good property management so I don't have to do it. And I picked Texas as the place to invest in. What do you like about Texas? I think you've invested in Texas, too.
Well, I have Texas as jobs and oil, but most of my Texas real estate's in San Antonio, because you have insurance and you have hospitals. You see, as I said earlier, real estate is worthless if there's no jobs. So when you see a ghost town, it's because the jobs left or the industry left, and the real estate is worth less and less and less. So since healthcare is going to be one of the biggest industries now that the baby boomers are getting older, that's why I'm in San Antonio for all the hospitals and the insurance companies, because they're going to boom, so I want to be part of them. I also have property in Houston because that's oil refineries. And I have property in Austin because of the University of Texas and Dell Computers. So it's really jobs that drive me into Texas.
I was just astounded. Not that it was a huge surprise, I guess, but the stats show that since the crash, Texas has created 1/3 of all new jobs in the country. My gosh, what an asset that is.
Yeah, but be careful. I'm just saying be careful because oil is in trouble.
Right, but there are some industries that, don't you think, benefit from the lower prices as long as it stays down, such as transportation and distribution and things like that?
You have to do your own market research on that. So, like I said, I invested in San Antonio because of insurance companies and hospitals. That's going to be a boom industry no matter what happens.
What about the military government job factor in San Antonio? Do you like that? Does it add some stability?
Yeah. San Antonio what I liked about San Antonio was small and it was missed by the REITs. So, but now it's on the radar screen, so it's getting a little harder to pick up stuff.
Yep.
But you got to be early. You got to know what you're doing. So that's why the Rich Dad Company promotes financial education, not just buying blindly. The trouble with real estate is illiquid. Stock market advantage is liquid, so you can get in and out quickly. Real estate, it's hard to get in and out of if you make a mistake.
Yep, everybody learned that a few years ago. With us today is Robert Kiyosaki, accomplished investor, financial educator, and best-selling author of the Rich Dad series of books, including Rich Dad, Poor Dad, here on Real Estate Radio Live on KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. When we come back with Robert, we're going to talk about the economy, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
I have Robert Kiyosaki with us today, accomplished investor, educator, and best-selling author of financial books. We're talking about real estate investing. One last thing before we move to the economy, Robert, what markets do you like right now for real estate investing?
Well, like I said, I'm in Texas a lot and Oklahoma, but I'm also in Arizona a lot because it's a great place. Now, the big thing to understand is not so much markets, but what's going on in the macro economy. And back during the bust of 2007, nobody was buying rental property, and so everybody was going to, you could be subprime, you could buy $1 million home, but without a job. You remember those days?
Oh yeah.
So what happened there was nobody was building multifamily homes, and a lot of people let multifamily apartment houses go. So between 2007 and 2014, Kenny and I invested over $500 million in debt to buy property, and so we scooped it all up. Then today, everybody's announcing that there's a shortage of apartment houses. At the same time, interest rates came from 5% to 2.5%. So we made fortunes in just a few years.
Yep. Those.
But it's really knowing what you're doing more than the area. There's no jobs, don't invest. It's quite simple.
Yep. Well, let's move on to the economy. Boy, the Donald's made a lot of money for Fox lately, hasn't he? You've co-authored a couple of books with Donald Trump. Investor Business Daily just said Trump is a force to be reckoned with. What's your response to that?
Well, there's some truth to it. But, people don't like him because change always creates upset, and he will change, and he will cause a lot of upset. As I said earlier, money talks and BS walks, and if you want BS, vote for the other guys. They don't know how to make money. They know how to spend money. Marco Rubio is an expert at spending money. They'll know how to budget money. Bernie Sanders has no clueless on how to make money. Oh. John Kasich, I don't know if he knows how to make money. He worked for Lehman Brothers as they went down.
It's clear. It's clear Bernie just wants to spend more money that we don't have.
I understand that, and so does Hillary, because she can put it in her pocket. So, Trump is going to destroy that system if he's elected. I feel for him. I'm concerned about my friend.
Yep.
He's treading on some big toes right now.
Yeah, he sure is. I would think so. You know him.
Yep.
Simon Black last week, I don't know if you saw it, but our friend there said that Donald Trump would be a great president for our times because he was the most successful and experienced in handling bankruptcy, which is our nation's biggest challenge. Did you see that?
I thought that was a very interesting art. Simon's a great guy, by the way, and he's like Trump, and he's like me, and he's like you. He doesn't mince his words. So if you want to be lollygoggled and handled, don't read Simon Black. But somebody, you have to bankrupt Social Security and Medicare. You can't afford to pay for it. It's going to bankrupt us one way or the other.
Yeah, I thought that was a great piece that he had. It's, however, most people are very short-sighted, so I don't know what the chances are of them seeing that they need to get some medicines that's going to fix them long-term instead of just make them feel better today.
Well, like I said, if you believe in the Easter Bunny, vote for Hillary.
We'll be back with Robert Kiyosaki on more about the economy here in just a moment. Robert, of course, is the very accomplished investor, financial educator, best-selling author of Rich Dad's series of books, including Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Very honored to have him with us today on Real Estate Radio Live on KDOW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network. Stay with us and hear more of what Robert has to tell us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Robert Kiyosaki with us today. Robert, so what are your thoughts about the vulnerability of the U.S. dollar and our debt?
Well, I think it's toast, personally. I mean, throughout history, it's lost 95% of its value since 1913, the year the Fed and the IRS was created. So I don't think it's going to take a few more years, another 100 years, to lose the last 5%. The thing I always say to people, because I have I have gold mines and silver mines, I have all that stuff, oil. I'm a commodities guy a lot of times too, as real estate. But they'll be around a lot longer than the dollar. I think the economist said the euro is going to go first.
You'd get out of the stock market, wouldn't you, right now?
I'm out. I've been out since May.
Yep. And where do you park your money? Real assets, like you just mentioned?
Well, you don't need money, so my money is someplace else. Let's just say that.
Okay. And but the best hedge for inflation is to get invested in real tangible assets that are commodities.
The best hedge for investment's debt.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When I'm paying 2.5% interest, it's the best.
Best time in the world best time in ever to have debt, isn't it?
Well, that's why I'm saying, why does Susie say cut up your credit cards and Dave Ramsey says get out of debt? When I was a kid in the 70s, if I put $1 million in the bank, I got 15% interest, and that was $150K a year. So it's not big money, but in 1970s, you could live on $150,000 a year. Today, if I put $1 million in the bank and I get 1% interest, that's $10,000 a year. You can't live on $10,000 a year. So that's how worthless your dollar has become.
Yep. How long do you think we can survive as the least dirty shirt in the laundry?
I don't know. I don't think about those things. I just do things that make sense. And right now, what makes sense is to not be in the stock market, not because stocks are bad, but because the book Flash Boys by forget his name now, but the high frequency trading that goes on in New York is that the markets are so unstable because speeds have picked up. Now they're trading in milliseconds, which is a thousandth of a second, and microseconds, which is a millionth of a second. And then your financial planner tells you to invest for the long term in a well-diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. You got to be crazy. That market is so unstable. Yeah. Any paper market is so unstable. So I want to be in things that are tangible, like gold, silver, food, oil, land, and real estate.
On October 20, the IMF is predicted to replace the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't sit around and play with myself thinking like that. I just want to know what's going to last. Right now, I'd be betting on cockroaches because cockroaches will probably survive.
If we lose the world reserve currency, what would that do to gold and the U.S. dollar?
I don't know. I mean, all I know is the BRICS Bank. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa opened just now, and the BRICS Bank are the emerging markets going against the rich guys, the white guys, of the IMF and the World Bank. The World Bank's controlled by Americans, and the IMF is controlled by Europeans. That's why Christine Lagarde, the first person she bailed out, she's French, she bailed out France. So it kind of pissed off Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So you have this, for the first time, you have the BRICS, the poor countries taking on the rich, called the World Bank and the IMF. It's kind of an interesting time.
It really is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It so happens that our hides are attached to it as well. But
not if you know what you're doing. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The reason I have gold, silver, oil, land, food, and all that stuff is because they're basics. The reason I'm in apartment houses and not high-end condos is because everybody needs a place to live. I can use debt, and the government gives me tax breaks to get rich. So I don't sit around and speculate into what Putin is going to do and all that. They're going to do what they're going to do. So you look at what is happening right now is Greece is gone, Japan's in serious trouble, China is about to go, and Brazil, Puerto Rico, and Argentina are set to go. Something's going to happen. I don't know what, though. So I want to stay with my food, stuff like that.
So your approach is don't worry about timing because it's so complex. Who can accurately predict it?
The reason I don't time is because everything is manipulated. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. We got so much government intervention. My friend Dr. Doug Duncan, the VP and Chief Economist of Fannie Mae, says that it's like a patient asking the doctor what the prognosis is, and when he's just prescribed 27 pills, and he says, I don't know. We've never prescribed 27 pills before. I think
that's a good one. So my philosophy is, take courses, read books, study, hang out with people who know what they're talking about. Stay away from salespeople, like stockbrokers, real estate brokers. Because the reason they're called brokers is because they're broker than you are. Do you know what I mean? And then you better figure out what makes sense. So I have food all over. I'm not Mormon, but I have food storage. I also have, precious metals, gold, silver, guns, and bullets, because you're going to need them. That's what I'm saying.
And you can't predict when, and when it's obvious to everyone, you can't get them, right?
That's right. And if you live in California, they're trying to take it away from you. So, and California has the highest poverty rate in the U.S. So what's going to happen is when the poor people get angry, they don't want your gold and silver. They're going to want your gun so they can steal your gold and silver.
Yeah, my daughter lives in Santa Barbara, a beautiful city. But, as I go along the median, along that beautiful beach, I counted 45 homeless people on the grass strip the other day. Other cities are putting them on buses and shipping them to Santa Barbara because they know they're dumb enough to take care of them.
Yeah. The same as Hawaii. Hawaii is such a communist state that they think giving people money is a good idea. Now they wonder why all these tents are all over the beaches.
Yep. And I want to help people, but giving them fish instead of teaching them the fish doesn't work so well.
That's why Donald and I advocate for financial education. Why we wrote 2 books together, Midas Touch and Why We Want You to Be Rich. Because it's better than being poor.
We'll do a wrap up with Robert Kiyosaki here in just a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back on Real Estate Radio Live on AM 1220 KDOW, the Wall Street Business Network.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
It's been a pleasure having Robert Kiyosaki with us today. Indeed, a rock star with investors, and I know from the pleasure of having a number of days with him in the recent years that he is very passionate about education, probably as much as anything, and has done as much as anybody I know in trying to give financial education to everyone. Robert, you have a new book. Well, it's not new now, but your latest book, Second Chance, and you have a movie as well, don't you?
Right. Second Chance came out in January 2015. It's about how Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller taught me how to see the future. So Second Chance is about how you can learn to see the future too, and how financial education can protect you. The video is called The Man Who Could See the Future. It's 60 minutes long. It's all financial education, but also why we're heading in the direction we're heading and what you can do. So it's a free video. The book's about $20, but maybe after you see the video, you might want to read the book. So the video is called The Man Who Could See the Future. You can download it at richdad.com.
Okay. Richdad.com is where you can get a lot of educational information, find out about all the books that Robert has written along with his advisors, and you can get Second Chance, all these books available on Amazon. Gosh, Robert, you're producing them faster than I can read them. But they're great indeed. And the movie is free on richdad.com.
It's 60 minutes long, and it's educational. It's kind of a documentary, but it's The Man Who Could See the Future, and it's how you can see the future, and it's what is financial education, and how you can protect yourself from what's going to happen.
And so. Thank you. Well, I have not seen that yet myself, and that's going to be high on my list. I've got a copy of your Second Chance, and I've started, but I'm now more motivated to finish it. Any parting thought, Robert?
Yeah, it's, all economies go up and down. I think we're going to go bust, but it's a good time too. When the Weimar Republic went down, unfortunately Hitler came to power, but it was a time for people to get rich too. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, millions of Jews lost their lives too. So it's exactly the time we're at today.
Robert, thank you very much for being with us. It's a pleasure having you. It's been a pleasure knowing you over the years, and you've certainly changed my life, as you have many, many others, with your teaching about financial education and philosophies. You can go to TomWilsonProperties.com if you want to hear the podcast of this program and others that we have with lots of other guests, such as Bob Helms and Russell Gray and Garrett Sutton and Dr. Doug Duncan and others. Go on TomWilsonProperties.com. And you can also sign up for a newsletter that has a focus on economics and how it affects real estate. You can go find a number of white papers there as well. Look for products that we offer to help you obtain your financial security, rental homes and commercial syndications. Always welcome your questions and requests for subjects and for future guests, and as well as giving you some consultation on how you might want to invest moving forward. So indeed, it was great to have Robert on with us today. Look forward to having you back with us on the next program on Real Estate Radio Live, AM 1220, KDOW, the Wall Street Business Network. And we always like having you join us. Thank you, Robert, very much. And remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast, discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.